Hello class, Mr. Greeno here. In this video I'm going to illustrate how to make an animated graphic. And let me show you what I mean by that. Did this a couple of years ago for one of my other courses, and I thought this would be a good thing to do for us. It's a GIF, .gif. So it's actually good to always have in your Windows folder File Explorer. They used to call it Windows Explorer, now they call it File Explorer, to have this file name extension checked so that you can see what the extension is of your files. So I like to see that it's a .gif. You can scroll over and it does say GIF file, but I like to see that extension. It's helpful lots of times. So if I double click it, you'll see this is what I made. Okay, so it's an animation. There isn't anything moving around, but the colors are changing. We'll see how to make that. So the first thing you want to do is click on your folder here, go to your drive, our course, and let's make a new folder, and let's call it animated graphic, because we're going to have a bunch of assets we're going to put in there to make this, so it'd be good to just kind of be organized. And then of course we always want to make sure, which obviously mine is working, but if you didn't have your drive, that's because you need to always check and make sure Google Drive desktop app is up and running and that you're signed in, which you can see I am with both my teacher and student account. And then the next thing is you want to open Photoshop. And we have been, or lots of times we do this, we go to Creative Cloud over here, but it seems to open faster if you just click these two intertwined circles. It opens the Creative Cloud desktop app quite a bit faster. And then where you find Photoshop, click open. Of course, if anything needed to be updated, update it first, and then open Photoshop. And once it's open, you're going to go to New File. I don't know if this is a custom one I did or if that's always there, but it's a good one. 700 by 400 is what we want. Just make sure this is on pixels, because if you have it on something like inches, that would be the banner that would be like the side of a building, because that's a lot of inches, 700 inches. But pixels, not so much. And then 400 as well. You don't get the choice for pixels, because if it's pixels for width, it's pixels for height. But you do get to choose orientation. We do want it on landscape. Over here we'll make it 300 pixels per inch. RGB color, make sure it's set on 16. Doesn't have to be set on transparent, but why not? Let's put it on transparent and then click create. So you get this rectangle with the checkerboard. Checkerboard stands for transparent. So now we want to put a pattern on here, like the pattern I had on my animated graphic. A background that's a pattern. So if you notice up here, they got these patterns, this patterns tab, and they got some patterns in here. And when you click and open one or two, it starts to get a little busy in this small area. So remember, you can click this panel, any panel, and drag it out. And so I'm going to open this up more so I can see more of what's going on. And then if I click one of these and drag it, well, it doesn't actually do anything. And the reason for that is patterns want to go onto a pattern layer, and we haven't made a pattern layer yet. So you first need to click this button down here, which if I hover it says create new or adjustment layer, and then we want a pattern layer. So now we have a pattern layer. Notice by default it puts something on there, puts these trees. You have a button here where you can change it. You also have some adjustments, like these leaves are pretty big. Maybe I want them smaller, so I can click this drop down and drag it a little more. Well, that's really too busy. You could even type in here. So if I know I want 75, well, maybe I don't like 75. I thought I hit 75. Yeah, I guess I had 76. So 75, maybe 50. Alright, so I like 50. Alright, so I say okay. Oh, you could also change the angle here if you want. Get a little angle to it. Whatever you like. And then say okay. But I have to say that the patterns that come with Photoshop are pretty sort of not exciting. They actually have legacy patterns that you could add. It's from like 2019. We're using Photoshop version 24, which is like 2022. So you got all these other ones too. Again, none of them are super exciting. You might find one you like, fine. If not, we can go somewhere and get one. And the somewhere would be the internet. So I open up Google Chrome. I'm going to download something. So before I download anything, I always want to make sure, click these three dots, go to settings, go to downloads, and make sure my browser is set to ask me where to download it. I don't want to download anything to the downloads folder. Well, you guys don't want to in class and on a public computer because, as I've said before, then those files only exist at the computer where you're sitting that day, and if that computer breaks or you sit somewhere else, then you don't have your files. So that's not a good thing. We want to save them to the cloud. So by, oops, I shouldn't have closed that. So by having this slider slid over to the right, it's always going to ask. It's not just going to download to the downloads folder. And so animated GIFs, what we're going to make, they're real popular. There's a website called Giphy. People make all these silly animated GIFs. Some of them aren't so silly. Lots of them now are videos that they turn into GIFs. But when they first started out, they were more sort of things that were drawn, cartoonish, shall we say. You know, something like this, whatever that is. Now people do a lot of video things. Let's not look at that other one. And so here's some, you know, just animated things, cartoonish, and what was I going to say? Oh yeah. Oh, and no sound supported. So it's only audio. I'm sorry, only video. And of course, it plays almost always. They play over and over and over again. They just keep going. All right. So we're going to do something like that of our own choosing, an animated graphic. So a good place to get these patterns is freephotoshop.org. If you go there and you click on patterns, you'll see they got all these different patterns you can download. And there's lots and lots of pages. So if we go to page 2, and of course they don't show you too many on one page because, well, they want you to look at all the ads as you go from one page to the next. After all, it is free, Photoshop, so they got to make money somehow. So some people like the hearts pattern, if it was like Valentine's Day, or this one. I've seen this one. Sometimes I don't think the dollar one works or the money one works. You say, well, what do you mean it doesn't work? Well, it's free Photoshop, so people upload these things, and they're supposed to work. They don't always work right, or at least not the way we want it to work. So you could use one of these. There's another website too that I found. I'm sure there's many, obviously, but these are the two I found and used in the past. This one, allfreedownload.com. When you hover over this, you can go down to patterns, and then there's more patterns here, and just more patterns and more patterns. Okay, I'll go back to this one, and I don't know, maybe I will choose the hearts. So I click on that, and it opens up to this. Now, of course, they're trying to get you to download other stuff. We just want this. Download here. If I click it, well, nothing happens. And sometimes you got to kind of, and over here it looks like to download it, but that's something else. So yeah, if you right click on it, sometimes that'll get it to go. And then choose Save Link As. You'll notice it says zip, and that's what we want. If it says HTML, it's just downloading the link. That's no good. We want a zipped file folder. Make sure you go to your drive and our class, and then that folder we made, and then save it there. Now, Chrome is saying something about securely, so I'm just going to say keep, because I guess it's being extra cautious because it's a zipped file folder, and I guess they're thinking it could have some bad stuff in it. So let me minimize this and go back to my folder. And let me put this view in extra large icon. So you can see it's a folder, but it's got a big zipper on it, a zipped file folder. You can double click it and you'll get inside there and you'll see what's in there. But you're really not supposed to use it that way because it's made to transport multiple things across the internet in one package, but not really made to be used on your computer that way. What you're supposed to do is right click and say extract all. This is usually checked by default. I always uncheck it because I like to show students, well, what happens when I click extract? When you click extract, it makes another folder, and you'll notice now it can actually show you the preview because it's not compressed anymore or zipped. Okay, and this is the one we want to use, not the zipped one. So after we extract it, let's go back and delete this. If you didn't uncheck that box, it would have automatically opened this folder, and sometimes you're like, what happened? Where'd I go? So that's why I like to uncheck that box. So I'm going to delete this and say yes. So now I'm going to double click on this, and you'll see inside there I have this file called a PAT file. It's a pattern file. Okay, if you don't have a PAT file, the person who uploaded this maybe didn't do it right. Here's some JPEGs, so they're just pictures, but they're not actual pattern files. We can't get them to repeat by bringing up that adjustment thing. If I double click over here, I can't change the scale of a JPEG, but of a pattern file you can. So that's why we want this pattern file. So if I go back, we want to make sure we have a .pat. That's why I said it's good to put on this file name extensions, because you can look over here and see it's a PAT file, but I like to see the .pat. Makes me feel more comfortable. So if I minimize this and I click on this 3-line button and I say import patterns and I go to my folder and I click on that PAT file and say load, say, oh, where'd it go? Well, it puts it at the bottom, so just scroll down. Now, it doesn't say hearts, it says 3. It's probably because of the way the people named it when they were working on it. But if I close this, close all these things, and open this one up, you'll see there's the hearts. And so if I click on one and drag it, there's all my hearts. And if I double click this, I should be able to change this because it looks a little busy right now. Make them a little bigger, maybe make them a little smaller. Okay, so I kind of like that. So I say okay. So now I have a more, I don't know, a more artistic pattern instead of some of those things that were just grass and trees. Okay, so that's how you get a pattern file into Photoshop and set it as your background. So that's the first video that we're going to do. In the next video, I'll show you how to add your name and put a style on it. But since we're done with this right now, let's do File, Save As, and on your computer, yes. And notice it went back to that animated graphic, so that's good. This is the folder I want. So I'm going to name it Animated Graphic. And then I can dock this back over there manually, or I could just say Reset Essentials, and it puts it back. And then I'm going to close this out and go on to the next video.